For those in the market for a ship that can do a range of different activities without breaking the bank, and perhaps with a reputation for rather liberally interpreting laws and rules, the Drake Corsair is likely to be on your radar. A ship that straddles solo and multi-crew, cargo and combat, the Corsair is understandably appealing to many players. But as a ship that has faced some high-profile balancing changes since launch, how does the Corsair perform in-game as of patch 4.3? I'm Forrester, and this video will review the currently flyable Drake Corsair, which is described on the Star Citizen website somewhat interestingly as an exploration and expedition ship. I guess that's to explore the cargo holds of others? If you've seen other ship reviews on this channel, then you may well recognise the format for this video. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs and profitability, before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead, and if you're one of the many people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider that, not least so you can keep up to date when new ship reviews like this drop. And this review of the Drake Corsair is based on performance in Star Citizen Alpha 4.3. And we'll start the tour for the Corsair by moving to the starboard side of the ship. This Corsair is obviously in landed configuration with both of the wings propped up. On the starboard side, the docking collar is visible externally, and there's also an elevator towards the front section which can take you up into the ship itself. We'll send that elevator back up and enter via a different entry. The manned turret on the side is very visible, as are the large, chunky pilot armament. There's another manned turret on the port side, and we'll move all the way round to the rear of the ship. At the rear on either side is a button to deploy the ramp access, which takes you up into the cargo bay at the rear of the Corsair. In this cargo bay I've loaded a selection of crates, and these are on the cargo grid. As you can see, with the grid operated, it is possible to move to either side of these crates with plenty of room to access the components therein. There's a large circular mechanism for the wings, and more component access on each side. At the front of the cargo bay is a set of stairs which takes you forward through the ship. The first segment you enter is engineering, which has some more component access on the walls, as well as a currently inoperative engineering terminal. Off to the side of engineering is an airlock room, and in here there are some suit storage lockers and some weapons lockers. There's also the airlock to the exterior of the ship. Moving back through engineering, we'll move to the midsection, which is where the mess hall is. In this case, mess is very much in the name, as the crew have left plenty of bottles around. Thanks guys. There's a small kitchen area, a small very Drake bathroom with a slightly leaky shower, and off to each side are some small habitation rooms. These have a bed with a storage locker, and also at the foresection of the mess hall is the elevator. This is the same one that we saw from the front of the ship, but it also takes you up to the roof of the Corsair. I'm yet to find a use for this, but I'm assured that it is useful. The elevator controls have some very Drake-style levers, which is kind of cool, I suppose. Moving further forward towards the front of the ship, there's access to the manned turrets on each side of the ship, and then we enter into the cockpit. Off to the side of the cockpit is the captain's quarters, a co-pilot seat, and the co-pilot seat takes you down below the pilot. And then right at the front is the pilot's chair. The Corsair comes armed with an interesting suite of weapons. The pilot controls 4 size 4 weapons, defaulting to M6A lasers, and 2 size 5 weapons, defaulting to M7A lasers. The co-pilot has a small turret armed with 2 size 2 weapons, defaulting to Badger repeaters. And then there are 2 manned turrets on each side of the ship, also armed with 2 Badger repeaters. The interesting part is that most of the armament is forward-facing and directly controlled by the pilot, and the weapons controlled by others aboard are fairly weak, at only size 2. That means that pilot combat performance is good, with the Corsair able to effectively engage all manner of targets, including ships of its own size, to fairly good effect, even without a crew. But that turret gunners would probably be better off flying their own ship, even perhaps a snub out of the back of the Corsair. That's exacerbated by some sometimes tough firing angles on the manned turrets. The Corsair also carries a suite of missiles, with stock loadout being 8 size 3, but with the option to carry up to 4 size 4 or down to 32 size 1. Defensively, the Corsair is equipped with a size 3 shield generator, which puts it on a par with a Constellation and gives it a reasonably tough shell against fighters. Altogether, that makes the Corsair a strong adversary for anything up to similar size ships, and especially dangerous for larger cargo or industrial types. The all-laser cannon default loadout makes for a satisfying point-and-click experience, but the large size of the mounts makes swapping those for preference, including higher damage choices, a strong option for personalisation. All in all, the Corsair still hits hard. In terms of visibility for the Corsair, the front pane is fairly clear, but the sides and above are a little more obstructed with some support struts. That said, the cockpit is right at the front of the ship, which makes it a little easier to fly. The SCM limiter sits at 190 meters per second, with boosted performance up to 390. At those speeds, the Corsair is able to fly somewhat quickly, at least for a ship of this size, but will take heavy drifts in turns, even with boost. But for giving chase to industrial ships, the Corsair handles fine. Kicking up a gear to nav modes, the Corsair can fly up to 1025 meters per second, which isn't going to chase down many fighters, but is usually enough for the loot pinatas. The stock quantum drive is the Torrent, which gives the Corsair good range, albeit at a lower speed, but even with an upgraded drive, the Corsair is still able to comfortably cross both Stanton and Pyro before needing to refuel. Running costs for the Corsair are a mixed bag, depending on what mischief you've been up to. Fuel is mostly cheap, into the low thousands of credits, and repair is also usually fairly cheap, also into the low thousands. Missiles, however, can become very expensive very quickly, rising into the tens of thousands of Alpha UEC, so are best used sparingly. Which is fine, because they're not really needed often with the Corsair anyway. To make some of that money back, the Corsair has options. Cargo trading is one such option, with the 72 SU cargo grid at the back. The grid is 3 units tall, 4 units wide, and 6 units long, so bringing up to 2 of the 24 SU crates and 6 of the 4 SU crates is an option. The 3 tall grid is a bit awkward, but that criticism also applies to many other ships. That said, there is more physical space available aboard off-grid, which makes using a little more space possible for those who are happy to risk it. Some hauling contracts are feasible, but because of the 3-high grid, medium haul contracts are usually a step too far. The cargo bay can also be used for ground vehicles, including the rock mining rover, as another option for making money. Or alternatively, that cargo bay could be used to store loot from victims, whether player or NPC, leaning into the piracy theme for the Corsair. Combat contracts are feasible to a fairly high level without too much difficulty, owing to the good performance of the heavy weapons aboard too. So the Corsair has lots of options for making money, which more than cover the running costs. Considering upgrade options for the Corsair, my personal recommendation would be to swap out the Quantum Drive for a Hemera or similar to boost travel speeds, perhaps changing the shield generator for a parapet to afford a higher shield pool, and changing weapons to personal preference, although I rather like the stock laser cannons myself. The Corsair sits in a great place in-game right now, in that sweet spot of ships that can be effectively used as a solo player, whilst also having things to do for a crew. Whilst additional crewmates add limited usefulness due to the relative weakness of the turrets, there's still somewhat of a role for up to 4 currently, which can be particularly good for inducting new players into a crew. The cargo bay at the back is large enough for a range of activities, whether that be hauling, trading, looting, or even bringing aboard ground vehicles or snub fighters. The cargo bay includes a ramp and can be completely filled up as the elevator offers an alternative escape option. Sadly, the Corsair has no tractor beam for the cargo bay, which means it's a bit more manual, but does have plenty of room in the back to bring an ATLS or similar. It fits in a medium hangar, which means it's often quicker than waiting for the larger hangars. The Drake aesthetics won't appeal to everybody, but it's undeniably a style. With an asymmetric layout, wings that fold, and a distinctive cockpit, the Corsair has real personality. Internally there are beds, an engineer station, although that's currently a placeholder as of patch 4.3, and an elevator to the roof. I'm assured that that is a useful feature, but I'm yet to make use of it personally. The Corsair is so versatile that it's genuinely hard to find many bad things to say for it. The main drawbacks are the poorly performing turrets, low visibility below the ship from the pilot's chair, and the more limited cargo capacity compared to peers. At a price of 6.5 million Alpha UEC, the Corsair is cheaper than the Taurus at 8 million or the Andromeda at 10 million. Whilst the Corsair has a smaller cargo grid, it can do most of the same things at a much cheaper price. Out of game, the Corsair sits at $225 to $250, which is actually a little more expensive than the Constellation offerings, so they might be a better choice for those splashing the real cash. But the in-game price is very accessible and makes the Corsair a very enticing offer for those looking for a general-purpose mid-sized ship, even if it is Drake. But what do you think of the Corsair? I look forward to reading your thoughts in the video comments. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to help me understand what videos to make more of in future, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so that YouTube knows to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.